Well, very good afternoon to you. The music is thumping around the beachfront as we get set for the World Triathlon Junior Women World Championship Finals here in Torremolinos in Spain. We have had an action-packed morning here on triathlonlive.tv in terms of the Para World Championship Finals, but now it is the youngsters, the stars of the future, those who will perhaps be dominating the World Triathlon Championship Series in a few years' time to take centre stage. Alongside myself, Oliver Wilson, is the former Olympian Gillian Sanders. And Gillian, there is an exciting field to say the least. There's also plenty of optimism, not just around the young stars today, but the young stars in their future and how this could be a huge leapfrog for them in their careers.
Yeah, this is a massive event for these up-and-coming junior athletes. We know in the Cassandra Bogard, Laura Lindemann, past winners of this event. And we know where those athletes have ended up, both Olympic medalists in Paris. Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity for these young athletes. We just take a look at the course there. One lap of the 750 meters, swim in the ocean.
Yeah, they get the waterfront done and then head out onto the bike ride. It will be a 20-kilometer ride of 4 laps of this course that is the same as the course that we saw yesterday in the Under-23 World Championship, snaking around just that dead turn on the top left-hand corner of your screen. The only real incline of note out there on the bike course. It gets narrow at some points, but reasonably wide enough, unlike the run along the flat across the front. 5 kilometers, 2 laps, the sprint distance on the run, and it is a thin track to say the least. The road split in half by cones, and if they get 3 abreast, passing could be a touch difficult for the athletes down there. 19-degree water temperature. Wetsuits will be on for this one. The air temperature, though, around about 23 degrees. There is a lot of breeze down on the beachfront, though, that's certainly causing problems for not just the athletes, but some of the advertising hoardings and our drones as well, which are unlikely to be able to be in use as the wind has just picked up here on the Spanish coast. And our officials still sporting the snazzy sunglasses, to say the least. Will be keeping everything all under check. Well, we caught up with one of the women that's looking to impress here in the Junior Women World Championships, the Hungarian Fanny Salai, before she gets into action this weekend.
I'm really excited and I can't wait to race. I'm counting the days since I think the European champs. I don't really feel pressure because I know this is my first junior world champs and I have 3 more. So I always said to myself when I'm really nervous to chill, you have 3 more world champs to lose. So yeah, I have a little pressure on myself, of course. I think running is my strength. I really like running and I like all of them. And I think I'm getting better in the bike because in the winter I'm biking really hard to close the gap to the other girls. So yeah, and I really like swimming because I started with swimming. I think little me would be so proud and she would say, wow, we did it. We qualified for the world champs. So I think she would be very proud and yeah, because little me was always very motivated to do something big, so yeah, a medal would be very dreamy, I think. But I don't want to say it because it's a little secret what I really want, but top 6 and top 10, but a medal would be dreamy.
Well, there's no doubt that a medal could be on the cards for Fanny Salai. She has burst onto the scene. 11 starts, 9 podiums and 8 victories in that brief spell. First at the Junior Women European Sprint Championships this year. First at the Junior Women Euro Cup event in Tijivaros in home nation of Hungary. She is certainly, Gillian, one to keep an eye out on in this start list today.
Yeah, she's unbeaten in any junior race, and that's quite a record to have. 16 years old, really, really young. Like you said, she has another few opportunities at this world title. But yeah, I'd certainly put her as one of the favorites here today. She's had an immense amount of experience racing against some of the very top women in the Super Tri Series recently. So yeah, I think her bike handling skills are going to be pretty good on this course. I don't really see that she has a weakness. So yeah, I think, she's going to be right up there.
definitely one to keep an eye on. She'll be sporting the number 12 cap. You can see her just in the back far right of your screen, wearing that silvery cap. The front 10 athletes, at least on the start sheet, decked out in the yellow swim cap. Siyi Zhang of China, sporting the number 1. 14 starts, 2 podiums to her name, 4th in the Asia Sprint Triathlon Championships this year. Notable accolade on her 2024 season, 2nd in the National Junior Championships last year in China. There's a few others as well that stand out on this. This Sonia de Koning, certainly one to keep an eye on, the Dutch woman as well, wearing the number 10. Are there any others that leap off the page for you, Gillian, this afternoon?
Yeah, we've got our silver medalist from Hamburg, Camina de la Pina Schott. So she represented Mexico in those World Championships last year, where she came 2nd. She's now transferred and is racing for the USA. Yeah, so I think she's definitely one to watch. Like you mentioned, Siyi Zhang, also a strong contender. Dominga Jacome Espinoza. We've unfortunately lost Manon Laporte of France. She's unable to start today, but she would have been one of our top contenders out there. Yeah, and then further down the list, you know, we've got the other French athletes, Amber Grasset. I think she'll be a strong contender. Eve Whittaker as well of Great Britain. Leah Hoart of France. There's a whole host of ladies who could really take this title here today. Yeah,
it's definitely not just worth looking at the top 10. I know in the Paris earlier today, there are generally a few that you can put a ring around and say that's the number 1 spot sorted and everyone's fighting for the best of the rest. Not to be the case in these Junior World Championships in the case of the women or the men coming up later on as well. They have to wait just a little longer, these ladies, before they can take their position down there on the starting blue platform as the officials make their way out to make sure that everything is done and dusted nice and evenly. Drafting will be allowed, by the way, out on the bike, unlike we saw in the Paris earlier today. There'll be no gizmo on the back of the bikes, as we were discussing earlier, that will be an indicator of whether an athlete is drafting or not. It's all okay to tuck in right behind everyone. And well, if it's anything like the under-23 world champs yesterday, we certainly had a fantastic finish when it came to that with the ladies. They put on the show. As now these young women get the chance to have their introduction to the centre stage. Siyi Zhang, as I say, with that number 1 cap on, and it always adds a little bit of extra spice and maybe a few extra nerves as well when you get to pull on the number 1 cap in yellow. Only started racing really last year. The young Chinese athlete ranked 136th in the world coming into this. And that might not sound like much, but particularly in comparison to the rest of this field, it's around about 60 ranking places higher than anybody else, which is why she wears that number 1. Here is the starters then for what is a very congested field of the junior women. Touched on a number of these top athletes already. Fanny Salah, as I say, wearing the number 12. Grace Henry of Australia up there in the top 20 or so on the starters list. Beatrice Norman might be one to keep an eye on. Manon Laporte as well, as we touched on, the French athlete, although she's had to drop out today. Beatrice Norman, the other one who's had to step away, in fact. Alexa Campbell as well, the other Canadian wearing the number 29, won't be competing today. Olivia Rooney might be one to keep an eye on, the New Zealander down there in the 40s. We will rattle our way through what is around about 68, 69 or so ladies that were meant to be starting this. As I say, a few dropouts earlier today. We've had that with the men as well. We've seen a few of the athletes dropping out before the starts of races over the last 3 days or so. It is a shame. It takes nothing away, though, from the spectacle that we have, and it just gives others the opportunity to shine more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just getting to a start line healthy and uninjured, you know, is a win in itself, to be able to put yourself out there and put yourself in contention. So, and that's part of being an athlete, keeping yourself healthy, you know, injury-free, and you know, making that start line. So really unfortunate that 1 or 2 athletes have fallen ill, had a few injuries or niggles here and there. But yeah, we still have, you know, most of our contenders here. Unfortunately lost Manon Laporte of France, one of our medalists from last year. But nonetheless, I think we are in for a very exciting women's race here today.
Some of those in the top 20 just starting making their way through now. The Estonian Lease captain, another someone who could be keeping an eye out on third in a Junior Cup recently, and Selene second in the Euro Cup in Zagreb as well in her last 2 events, comes in with a fair bit of form to her name. Then the young Estonian, touched on Grace Henry as well, the Australian, who's going to be alongside her, at least in the starting list, wearing the number 17, as the athletes will decide which side they want to start on the beach, on the left or the right. It's been favoured generally on that right-hand side, but we've seen a split from the top athletes of the far left or the far right side of the starting positions. Certainly as many of the athletes as possible avoiding being in that cluster in the centre, as what we've seen with most of our races out there in the water today is that everybody starts out in an arrow either on the left or the right, and then they all merge as they get to that first turn, and that's when it comes slightly a kerfuffle, shall we call it, Gillian?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting today. Our races yesterday were both in the morning. We're now in the afternoon. You know, there's a little bit of wind. You can see that flag over there. The wind's picked up, so very different conditions to yesterday morning, where it was very calm. There might be some currents. There might, be a bit more chop out there, further out towards those turn buoys at the far end of the swim course. So things to consider. And these women would have had a swim warm-up. They would have checked out the course and made a decision as to which side of that long stretch of blue carpet to stand. Yeah, just for our viewers, the swim caps are numbers 1 to 10 ranked athletes are wearing yellow swim caps, 11 to 20 are in silver swim caps, athletes 21 to 30 in red, 31 to 40 are in blue, and we just see our green athletes coming out, 41 to 50, and we will then have purple is 51 to 60, and lastly 61 to 70 will be wearing orange swim caps.
You can see there's a few that are taking some rather interesting spots. Isla Watson, the Australian, seems to be towards slightly more the centre of things rather than posing on either side, which is an interesting place to put herself. Look, it's each to their own, I suppose, and if you think you can get away and get a good start, it doesn't really matter where you are as long as you're leading the pack out there in the water. It's whether you can find that a reaction as the klaxon sounds, and then the ability to find that separation in the water as well. Can't win a triathlon with the swim. You can certainly put yourself behind the 8 ball and potentially lose it as well if you come out of the water maybe 2 minutes adrift of anybody else, particularly on what we're set to be a very rapid fire feeling, of course, with the sprint distance today.
Yeah, and I think the beach start, you can make a bit of a difference versus the dive start on the pontoon. So beach start does give you an opportunity. You can really nail your run into the water, and if there is a little bit of chop and some waves, you can really nail your swim entry. So definitely something worth practicing for these athletes. The athletes 42 and 44 there in the middle. That's Elma Bergqvist and Yevi Soroka of Sweden and Ukraine, respectively.
Yeah, not quite joined at the hip, but close together on the start sheet. I suppose you have to, not really as much choice in terms of where you want to put yourself as well. If you're down in those 40s, 50s and 60s, once the top 30 to 40 athletes have decided where they're going to be positioned out there on the water's edge. Tide looks like it's gone out a fair bit. It's a slightly bigger trudge down in the water. You can see the drop-off as well, though, of the sandbank, how steep it gets, and that may just cause a slight problem for the athletes as they come out of the water after the 750-metre swim. That will be still in a few minutes' time, and there's nothing left to ponder except a positive start and getting first out into the waters in front. The sun's on its way back round, so there'll be none of the glare off the water either that the para-athletes had to deal with earlier this morning, that left a few of them rather unsighted as they went out towards those buoys. It was difficult visibility on the way out, and then difficult with the wind on the way back. The wind has picked up and will be a problem throughout today. Visibility, at least for this swim, is far better than it was. So who will be crowned Junior Women's World Champion 2024. They get underway and out into the water as quickly as possible for what will feel like a very quick dip indeed. 750 meters up around the boys and back down again.
Yeah, and it looked like very similar to the under-23 races that most of our higher-ranked athletes in the yellow swim caps elected to start on the right-hand side of the pontoon as you looked at the athletes. It'll be on the left side as you look at your screen now. But if you just take a look further out to sea there, you can just see a little bit of white water there, and it's going to be challenging swim conditions for these athletes out here today. I think it's definitely going to favor the stronger swimmers. There's not much of a swell, but there's certainly some chop out there and some challenging currents to deal with.
It's definitely choppier than it has been throughout this weekend so far. You saw just in the centre of your screen, Cristina Jimenez Orta Guerrero was one of the ones that was leading the charge out in a purple swim cap. We've got a yellow swim cap, which I think may well be Isla Watson, who was positioned in that sort of section of the field on her way out. Unfortunately, as we touched on earlier, the wind that is blowing around the beachfront has limited our ability to use the drone cam, so we are stuck with some of the static cameras for a large part of today, and of course the motorbikes as well that we following the athletes around on the bike and on the run. But the drone is so useful at giving us the shots and letting us see how the swim is progressing, knocked out of action due to the elements here on the Andalusian coast.
Yeah, we're a little bit blind insofar as identifying the athletes are concerned, but I think you're right, Ollie. It was Isla Watson. She started in the middle. You could see that yellow number 4 swim cap, and she had a really good start, and I think she is at the front of one of those arrowheads at the moment. We just caught sight as well on the beach there of Javier Gomez, obviously Spanish legend in World Triathlon. Recently announced his retirement from the sport and will be working with the Spanish Federation, helping to identify future talent. So yeah, awesome to see him on the beach there, and he'll be helping Spanish athletes here today.
Yeah, Watson, who's leading this pack, under-23 aquathlon champion earlier this year in August, came 5th overall in the elite section, just showing her prowess through the water right now, and I think that is her in the yellow swim cap, just on the top right of your screen almost, who is going to be the first one out towards that buoy. All I can say is that it's a good job it is only one lap, because trying to work out where all of these bodies are as they make the turn up towards that far buoy twice around is certainly going to be a taxing effort for our cameramen down there. We'll do their best to keep us abreast, and we will bring you, of course, throughout this race, the accurate time splits brought to us by the timing chips that all of the athletes have and wear, although it sometimes can go a touch haywire when it comes to the readings from the timing chips, and things can get a little fast and loose on occasion. But as I say, we will do our best to keep you up to date with all of the action as best as we can here with these Junior World Championships, as they're almost getting towards that first turn. There are 4 boys out there making up the turn back towards land. None of them are too tight and taxing, but we have seen still on occasion this weekend that if you get stuck in the middle of the pack, and these are big groups that are going out in these Junior World Championships, both the women and the men later on, it can be a bit of a fight to find your way all the way around and back to the beachfront once again, almost without taking a few bumps and bruises there.
Yeah, and particularly if there is a bit of chop out there as well, that just bounces everyone around a little bit more, and you might not intentionally, touch or make contact with the person next to you, but sometimes you can't help it with the chop washing over you. You can just see there all the white water, the women going around that first turn buoy. It is a large field. We've got about 65 women in this race, so it will get quite physical, probably towards the middle to back end of that field. Much clearer water for those athletes at the front. You can see one of our swimmers there, a nice little gap. I think that's a silver swim cap. There's a yellow swim cap just sitting on her feet there. So our silver swim caps are our athletes ranked number 11 to 20. We know that Fanny Salai of Hungary is ranked 12th, so it could possibly be Fanny. Obviously we're speculating there, but we know that she is very, very strong in all 3 disciplines. And that athlete has quite a gap at the moment. Yeah,
just being able to carve out an extra bit of a lead as Watson, we think it is, in the yellow swim cap, trailing and bringing up the rear, so to speak. I mean, if that is Fanny Salo, what is it about the Hungarian team? They all tend to be fantastic through the water and have that ability to etch out leads on the swim. Where we normally see a lot of the Hungarian athletes struggle after they get so well out of the water is either on the bike or just not being able to completely have those energy levels all the way together for the run as well. Fanny Salo doesn't seem at the moment, from what we've seen in her short career so far, and she touched it in that interview that we had before the race this weekend, she's got a long time still to have more cracks at the Junior World Championships if she wants to, but there's a strong chance that she can be able to find this sort of gap very early on and get herself cleanly out of the water and through transition. She's got everything else in her locker in terms of the bike and the run as well to be able to finish this thing off before it's even got going almost.
Yeah, I don't think she has a weakness, if I'm honest. So, and she's used to, like I said, racing super tri. She's racing with, you know, Olympic medalists, the ladies who are the very top end in the world rankings. So she's been racing with those athletes over the past few weeks. She's had a few top 10 performances there as well. So she's used to racing at a very high intensity. Yes, well, once we get a closer look, we'll be able to see who that athlete is. But like we said, it is an athlete who's ranked in the 11th to 20th wearing the silver swim caps. And then there's a bigger group behind. You can see they're quite a large group of athletes. We know that it was potentially Isla Watson wearing number 4 of Australia. She's our runner-up in the Oceania champs this year.
Also can see a few red caps in there. One could be Brittany Brown, the American, ranked 350th in the world, but a winner at the African Junior Cup in Mandalay Bay a couple of years ago. She did fairly well in the Central American Championships this year, 7th in the American Tri-Cup Central American Championships in the elite category, which shows that she can mix it up with the best in the field as everybody is round through the turns and making their way back. There's a couple of athletes just on the far left-hand side of the screen as well that look to be making up a bit of ground and have done actually quite well to avoid the throng. With a bit of clean water in front of you and a tight angle off that turn to head back towards the beach, you might be able to get a decent run at overtaking a few of the others on the outside of you.
Yeah, they're very widely spread across as well, and you can just see the wind carrying the white water off the top of the athletes as their arms and legs come out of the water there. It just gives you an idea of how windy it is. But yeah, we do have one athlete there on the far left. From the camera shot, it looks like they are taking a direct line into shore. I don't know if there is perhaps a current out there that might be carrying the athletes off to the right-hand side. A bit difficult to tell without the drone shot.
I did wonder, it was a very odd angle that they came off that final buoy and then everybody suddenly realised, oh no, we're going to the beach over here kind of thing. I mean, you can lose your bearings a little, I suppose, in choppier waters and in difficult windy conditions, get pushed off to one side, particularly if there is a rogue current out there that's dragging them off to one side. But it just did seem like an odd angle as whoever is in that silver swim cap out at the front, we think it might be Fanny Salo, still got plenty of water out there in front of her and is fairly alone in terms of having a decent gap over the rest of the chasing pack. It certainly looks like she is being hunted. A very strong group. Well, what could be almost a large majority of the field right on her coattails.
Yeah, it looks like quite a big group, and then you've got a few stragglers towards the back there, a few gaps that have formed. You can see those athletes. There's 2 athletes at the rear there, one in a green swim cap. I can't really tell what the color of the other one is at the moment. It's difficult. And it's one of our athletes wearing the blue swim caps, ranked 31 to 40. That's on the very far left, choosing to take a different line to everyone else.
Could be Sarah Crociani, of course, the Italian who... Well, the Italians also have a strong pedigree in the water on occasion.
Yeah, we know her brother, Olympian Alessandro Crociani. He had qualified for Paris, competed at the Olympic Games there, is a very strong swimmer himself. Sarah's just started at the University of Arizona, so has made the move from Italy over to the US, where she'll be studying in Arizona. She's had quite a few European Junior Cup podiums and was recently 4th at the European Sprint Championships in the junior category. Definitely
the university in Arizona to keep your focus in Arizona as opposed to Arizona State. From what I've been told, nothing against Arizona State at all. Just heard it's a slightly more rambunctious scene perhaps away from the studies at Arizona State, that's for sure.
Well, we do have Sydney Clements of Canada, who is at Arizona State University. So she's...
You'd never accuse her of not being locked in when needed to be, that's for sure.
She is ranked number 6 going into this race today. She'll be wearing one of our yellow swim caps. So yeah, we have our athletes, one athlete's clear of the rest, and a large pack heading towards the beach.
Just keep an eye again on that shoreline. You can see the drop off of the sandbank. You can just about make out some of it actually under the water, and you see, we saw it yesterday a couple of times, some of the athletes just struggling to get out. Might be a slightly more difficult exit from the swim than some of them were hoping for, particularly with the slightly choppier waves. So it's relatively calm at the seafront compared to what it could be with the wind. First of the athletes getting their sights on the shoreline and the chance to prepare themselves to get out and get through into transition to make their way across off the beach.
Yeah, that's a sizable gap for 750 meters on the swim.
Right into the shoreline. I think that is Fanny Salai, I think the number 12, who is the first to go through then.
Yeah, that's Fanny Salai leading out the swim. So 11:08.
Very impressive indeed to find that separation. 12 seconds the gap already, as Leah Huart and Eve Whittaker, the next two closest to her in terms of some of the big runners and riders. Sydney Clement down in 8th, 15 seconds off the leader. Jimena Renata de la Peña shot the American, 17 seconds down in 13th. It's all very jumbled up though, as a huge throng of athletes within 5 seconds of each other, ranging from 29th in the field all the way back down to 4th or so. So Salai's done a really good job of just clearing herself away from the rest of the field, and now she'll make her way down towards her bike and get set to go out only 20 kilometers, the 4 laps of technical twisting bike section. You do want to have some sort of space. It's quite intimidating to see that many bodies running down what is a relatively narrow transition area here in T1.
Yeah, and they've got to, take off the wetsuits as well, which is an additional thing to do. If the water was a bit warmer, that would have been something less to do. And see Fanny Salai just jumping on her bike there. I think that's one of our French athletes who's had a fantastic transition. So
Leah
out on the
Huart
bike
has
first, yeah.
done superbly there to leapfrog Salai after a slow transition from the Hungarian, losing 12 seconds already. They go out through transition onto this bike course. It's fast, it's certainly furious if the athletes want to push the tempo. I'm sure after making that 12-second gap, Salai will not want to be joined by this string of bodies that are all so closely packed together.
No, she'll want to take perhaps a smaller group of athletes with her, the likes of Leah Hohart, Eve Whittaker's up there as well, the local Spanish athlete Cristina Jimenez, Orta Guerrero. She came out of transition 1 in 4th place. Tabia Hayes, Sydney Clements, our Canadian athlete, and Lisa Lecomte as well, the other French athlete. Grace Henry of Australia was up there, and our silver medalist as well from last year, Jimena de la Peña shot. So here's a shot of Eve Whittaker just trying to get on the back wheel of Leah Hohart of France. Fanny Salai leading them out at the moment.
Yeah, there's no messing around for these front 3. They look to find some separation. The front 2 looking to almost distance themselves from Whittaker, or will say, if you're going to come with us, you've got to come with us at our pace more than anything else. And no surprise to see Salai, after dropping back slightly behind Leah Huart, she is now ready to get herself back on the front and try and lead the pace.
And Pace of Austria having a little look behind, trying to get on the wheel of Eve Whittaker in front of her. Just looked like Eve Whittaker struggling to get on the wheel of Huart and Salai in front of her there.
Second in the Austrian National Championships this year, first of the juniors in her nation, Tabea Huis. She might look to work her way through the field out here on the bike. Started out in 5th from transition.
Yeah, so the bike course probably has about 15 odd 90-degree turns, so pretty technical, not so much in the way of climbs. There's one incline up to the dead turn, which I think they're heading up towards at the moment. Yeah, but apart from that, around 15 90-degree turns, so flat, technical. It is windy out there, that could be a factor as well. So Hayes just goes straight past Eve Whittaker and really needs to work hard to try and get on that wheel of Leah Hoardt in front, because a group of 4 would be ideal for these athletes to work together well.
You see Whittaker having to get out of the saddle just to try and push herself up to the leading 2 along with the Austrian, and those 4 are just starting to leave this group behind a fair bit.
Yeah, then this large chase pack here.
So there's a group of 5 out there in front, which is split up into a 3 and a 2. This is what you can see for yourselves. Lisa Lecomte is that on the right-hand side of your screen, the French athlete just getting past Eve Whittaker, as well as Whittaker just struggling to stay with the leaders right now, but Lecomte is more than happy to push herself straight up into the centre of that field and that tussle right at the front with Salai and Hoardt. So there's another 2 French athletes, as we've seen quite often this weekend already. The French athletes enjoying their time here in Torremolinos and certainly trying to put themselves in medal contention in almost every single race possible.
Yeah, really strong cycling by Tabea Hayes there. Went straight past Eve Whittaker, really pushed herself and just getting on the back wheel there of Leah Hoardt. Countrywoman's Leah Hoardt, Lisa Lecomte as well, cycling really strongly there and just trying to make contact with that trio.
In fact, I think that's Amber Grasset rather than Leah Lecomte who's the one who's made that push. That's a huge push suddenly from about 13 seconds back off the leaders coming out of transition.
Yeah, that's really strong cycling.
She lost 11 places, sorry. Oh, made up 11 places even going out of transition. She's trying to make up another almost 11 or so.
Yeah, it is
Grasset's
Grasset.
right up there.
Yeah, that's fantastic biking by Grasset there. Grasset is definitely a threat come the run. She's represented France in the World Cross Country Championships, so she's one to certainly challenge.
Fight them on the beaches, and the phrase should be far more adept perhaps on the sand than anything else, as a man that needs no introduction really. The new face of Spanish triathlon off the track, keeping a watchful eye over everything.
So Whittaker has been able to make this group, so now 5 athletes up front here. We've got Eve Whittaker of Great Britain just sitting in the back of the group. We've got our 2 French athletes, Grasset, Leah Hoardt, and we have Fanny Zalai of Hungary and Tabea Hayes of Austria.
You said a group of 4 would be a good group to have. A group of 5 perhaps as well, just gives you enough rotation up at the front.
Yeah, it's a good size, really good size to be able to work together efficiently. And you can just see this large group getting really, really strung out now. It's one of our athletes, I think, from presenting independent neutrals, I think, was at the back there of that group. The Whittaker just struggling here, Ollie, just detaching from the group. You can see Tabea Hayes applying the pressure on these technical parts, and Eve Whittaker just struggling a little bit on some of those technical bits.
She won't want to get pushed into no man's land and maybe reeled in by the large group behind, a group that stretches back around about 10 seconds between all of them, strung out between Mick Wittens, the Belgian, in 6th, and going all the way back almost to Sofia Tikhonova down in about 33rd, 34th as well. Dominga Elena Nicom Espinosa of Chile as well, 25 seconds off the leaders in the last of that group that strung out before. There's about a 6-second gap from the rest, and yeah, Whittaker would much rather be just hanging on to the rear wheel of those leading 4 right now, but it's a 4 that seem like they really want to make an aggressive push early on the bike. And I suppose from what we saw yesterday at the Olympic distance on the bike, where we had a breakaway group for about half of it and then they were caught up and reeled in by the rest of the pack, you've only got 4 laps to do your reeling in if you're in the chasers, so you've got to either put up or shut up, I suppose, and get that fight going fairly early, as we see Whittaker there.
Yeah, she's just fallen off that group. The chasers, I think, were about 15 seconds back at the last time check. You've got the likes, you mentioned, Mick Wittemans, Isla Headley as well. Isla Headley is really strong in the bike. She comes from a mountain biking background, so she's leading the chase. And she'll be really proficient around those technical sections. We can just see we've got 2 athletes now who've broken off the front of that chase group.
I think one of them is Headley, who is making the push just on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll try and get confirmation of who has gone with Headley as they look to perhaps get others up to this front 4 and into the equation. But it's a front 4 with the two French women, Salah and the Austrian Huis, that are looking large and in charge out at the front right now. They'll come round to the safe front here and make their way along the front to start the second lap of 4. Just a few moments time. That's Whittaker, who's been dropped off by those up at the front. Got no time for stragglers, the front 4. And the Austrian is really pushing the tempo, having a look behind, trying to check between the motorbikes that are following our leaders, just exactly where everybody is. And you see Whittaker there out on her own, falling behind. And then there is a gaggle of athletes waiting to pounce on her and bring her in. Those are the two as well. The breakaway two was Grasser leads them through on the first lap of the bike. Whittaker, Wittmans on the charge along with Headley. So it was Headley and Wittmans, the British and the Belgian, that are about 6 seconds in front of the rest of that big group of athletes. And those are the two that fancy their chances of reeling in Whittaker and then making a move to join up with the front 4.
Yeah, a few stragglers between as well. No surprise that Isla Headley's made a move off the front there. Really strong technical cyclist. And then, yeah, we've got that big chase group of our athletes from 8th through to around 31st. So big group of 20-something odd athletes there making chase. And they are around just over 20 seconds back at the moment.
Headley just dropping back a little bit, you see there, in terms of the chase for this front 4 that are continuing, it looks like, to try and put as much distance between them and the rest of the group as possible. And it looks like those that have made the burst, including Wittmans, are just starting to fall out of that chase and be instead enveloped by those back behind them once again.
Yeah, you can have a look at the trees here, Ollie. There's a massive headwind on that section of the course as well, so they might be struggling into that headwind. When there's only 2 of you, it is quite difficult. The more bodies around you, obviously, the better, and the more protected you are from the wind. So that section looks very windy, so pretty challenging for these athletes. You see Fanny Salah having a glance behind, wondering, you know, who's going to be joining them. Is anyone going to be joining them? At the moment, just the motorbikes there. Have Wittmans and Headley, who I think have picked up Whittaker as well, a further 14, 15 odd seconds back.
Yeah, and as I say, I think that gap's getting stronger and stronger and longer in terms of the gap between this group of 3 and the leaders, because the leaders have made this turn some time ago, and the chase group has now caught up with Wittmans and Whittaker and Headley.
Yeah, you just caught a shot there, I think, of Lola Lepena's shot as well, of the USA. She was just on the back of Eve Whittaker's wheel there.
So the front 4 have got their chance now to really crack on. They'll have a good look and see the gap that is starting to expand between them and the rest of the field right now, and that very strong, elongated group that consists of almost 20 riders or so, maybe a couple more than that. These 4 getting stretched out slightly on some of the areas as maybe the wind playing its part. Once again, Salah just struggling out there on her own a touch and maybe desperate to get right back onto the rear wheel of the others just to help her out and take some of the pressure off herself, which she does well.
Yeah, interesting to see her drop back a little bit there on that technical section. I'm not sure what the thinking was behind that. Perhaps playing it safe, I'm not sure. She might be struggling, I'm not sure. Or saving the legs for the run. Might be a tactical decision.
Is it possible in these, with such a wind that we've got around Torremolinos here today, to inadvertently drop off? Because once you find that gap, and it's easier for it to expand because there's such a wind blowing in your face, there's more obviously resistance when you do fall out of the slipstream of those that you're riding with.
Yeah, it is a factor. I don't think she fell off enough for it to be, you know, a massive factor, but I think it might be, you know, a little bit harder. There is a massive wind today. We can't have our drones up for our viewers watching. Yeah, unfortunately, those lovely overhead shots that we were getting yesterday in the under 23 race, we're unable to bring those to you today because the wind has become such a factor. We can just see our chase group there coming through.
Alison Wolf of the United States, a DNF, unfortunately has had to drop out of the race. We've had a few of those across the weekend, and certainly a couple of mechanicals as well, and particularly in the Paris earlier today, put pay to some people's races. It certainly had a big impact as well, even just the delays from some awkward moments in transition.
two French athletes on the front of that bike group there. Fanny Salai not taking a turn at the front. Haven't seen her at the front of that group. The other athletes all taking a turn at the front of that group.
She had a brief spell at the very beginning when they were pushing the tempo, but you're right, she's been sat back and again just keeps on a slight gap opening up every so often between her and the other three. Ruiz now making a push towards the front. French responding, and Salai just tucking in behind them once again.
Yeah, these athletes are working well together. Ace, I think, was 9th in the last World Championships in Hamburg last year. Sorry, I'm mistaken. She was 11th in Hamburg 2023 and recently finished 7th at the European Sprint Championships.
Yeah, there are a number of athletes that have a very high pedigree when it comes to the exploits, particularly at the junior and youth levels over the last couple of years. It's made it an interesting field in terms of, you know, we've picked up on Fanny Salai in terms of the run of form that she's in right now at the junior level, but really was almost a dartboard you could take at the starters list and go, well, any one of these could find their way up onto the podium, and certainly there's a chance for a really strong tussle for silver, bronze, and maybe even gold today as well. There's not too many that you would completely count out being able to make an impact at these junior world championships.
Yeah, but this chase group now making it a little bit more difficult for themselves. They find themselves now 25 seconds back, so that time gap has gone out. We know it was around 15 seconds after the first lap. It's now sitting at 25 seconds.
Because it is a technical bike course as well, being in such a big group, they are going to have to be strung out slightly when they start snaking their way through some of these corners and some of these tighter parts of the course, because there's just not enough room for everybody to go around at once, to be honest.
Back with our leaders. Two French athletes, Tabea Hayes sandwiched between the two French, Fanny Salai of Hungary. See, they're making their way back down towards the beach. They'll do a right-hand 90-degree turn, make their way along the beachfront. That will be 2 of the 4 laps completed and another 10 kilometers left.
Yeah, there'll be a bit of a slight sandblasting as well when they get down to this beachfront. Salai still just sitting on the back and just waiting and biding her time, perhaps, as they get towards the half point. A lot of the tempo is being pushed by the Austrian as well, particularly when we've got down to the longer straights and down to the beachfront, as it was on the last lap as well. You see Huys is the one making a stronger push perhaps out of the front in these moments, although she's letting the French women do the hard graft now as Amber Gasset and Léa Huart send them across the line to start the 3rd lap out there on the bike. We wait to see how far adrift that group is in the rear of your screen there. It does look like that gap maybe just eking out more and more and more as the front 4 are trying to make sure that it's only going to be those 4 scrapping for podium positions. 28 seconds, the gap's gone up by another 3 or so, as Dominga Elena Jacome Espinosa in 5th is the one closest to the leading 4 and helping to try and push the pack up front along with Maria Lopez Farado.
Yeah, so Fanny Salai having won those European Sprint Championships earlier on in the year. You know, Hayes of Austria finished 7th in that event. Léa Huart actually crashed out, so she was unable to finish that. So I'm sure she has some unfinished business. Amber Grasset, I don't believe she raced that event. She took out the French junior title, so she is our French junior champion. So yeah, they'll be familiar with racing each other. All European affair at the moment. Hayes really putting the pressure on the bike here.
Yeah,
Cycling
she once
really
again is
yeah,
pushing
strong.
the tempo up at the front. You can see the power exuding from her as she looks to bring the others with her. Salai is now taking a turn up towards the front as the French duo just swap back to the rear of this 4 once again. Still yet to see really Salai right at the lead group, the front of that group for the last lap and a half or so. What would be a lead that would take most of these women out of contention, do you think, considering the front four? Would you be looking at 45, 50 seconds only on it's a 5K, obviously it's a short run indeed.
Yeah, I would say, you know, around 30 seconds or so. So it's going to be difficult for them. They're now sitting 28 seconds back. Starting to slip out of their hands.
Salai out of the seat, working hard up the hill. It doesn't look, when we see it from behind them, it doesn't look like it's that steep, but it is a short, sharp climb, which, when you're fighting the elements and the wind as well, it's just a little zap to the legs as just see the Grasset taking a slightly different route to everybody else around the corner and just having to make up a bit of pace on the way back down the hill. The leading ladies go past the chasing group, the gap maybe just sustaining slightly more opened up than it was the last time. It is a bike course where you will get a chance every so often to see your opponents, but if you drop off too much, then you can easily be struggling to be sighted for them. As Salai is just back off the rear again. She seems to struggle after that downhill section and then making that left turn, and she has to work hard on this straight in particular to get herself back up with this leading three.
Yeah, there's one part of the course, I think it's a technical section, where she does seem to be struggling a little bit more than other parts. So, yeah, just a little bit of a gap forming there. See how Chase is coming around that corner. She is very, very young and new to racing, 16 years old. This is her first World Championships, Fanny Salai. So, yeah, pretty new to her. She has been racing the Super Tri, but that's a lot shorter. The distances are, you know, very, very small. It's similar distances to the mixed team relay, so it's very, very fast and short. So this is a little bit longer. She has raced, you know, some sprint distance races, but a lot of her racing has been very, very short racing.
It's reflected by the fact that just slightly slower going through the timing charts and the midway point of this third lap of 4 out there on the bike, but still the front 4 pretty much staying together, locked in around about a second or so between first and fourth. The main thing that we are keeping our eyes on is where the rest of that group is.
Yeah, 28 seconds, the last split, led through by Dominga Elena Jacome Espinoza of Chile.
It's up to 37 seconds. Eve Whittaker bringing the leaders through, but they are now over 30 seconds back. The hard work at the front by Tabea Huisinko is certainly paying dividends and taking a number of athletes out of the equation here. If they can keep this up for another lap and a half, it could be a gap around about 45, maybe even 50 seconds almost if we get to that point. And then it will be a fight for fourth and first between these 4.
Yeah, really, really strong cycling by these ladies. Leah Hohartz belonging to La Rochelle Triathlon Club and Amber Grasset to Issy Triathlon Club. And like I mentioned yesterday, Ollie, these athletes will be used to racing on the French Grand Prix circuit, and that certainly gives them an advantage with regards to racing at such a high intensity, helping them to develop their bike skills. You know, it's only a winning formula, as we can see, with the strength and depth of the French across all the different categories.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong international field indeed for the French. They are becoming one of the powerhouses in world triathlon as a nation. There's no discredit to anybody else, and there's no doubt about it, though, that Hungary is starting to produce a number of excellent young athletes as well that have a superb connection in the water. Can certainly finish off these triathlons well on the run too. Salai just making sure she sticks with the front 3 once again, having to work a little bit harder. The question I want to ask you really is, do you think this front 4 is pushing the tempo so much that perhaps someone like Huis is trying to gas the 2 French and the Hungarian while also pulling this group away from the rest of the field, or is somebody perhaps working at this group a touch too far and is actually losing the pace themselves?
I think Hayes is putting the pressure on. She knows that Grasset is a very strong runner. She knows that Fanny Salai is a very strong runner. and yeah, she probably wants to, you know, try and zap their legs as much as possible. So yeah, I think that is a tactic. You know, she wants to put herself in medal contention. She had that 11th last year. I'm sure she wants to improve upon that. She's playing to her strengths. She knows she's strong on the bike, so capitalizing on her strengths. Salai is mentored by Triathlon Great Britain legend Tim Don, so he's been helping her out quite a lot.
It always makes life easier when you've got sage old heads, shall we say, in your camp to be able to advise you, particularly as a junior. I wonder what the advice would be from her technical crew right now in terms of the amount of effort she's clearly at times having to put in to stay with these front three. In fact, the only people that look incredibly comfortable and very much happy and settled, I would argue, are the two French ladies in that group, Amara Gasset and Léa Huart, who neither have looked like they've been pushing the tempo as much as the Austrian, nor dropping off the back at all of this front four like Salai has done.
Yeah, I think Tim's advice probably would be to be exactly what she's doing, to sit where she is sitting. If she is struggling a little bit, then, you know, it makes no sense for her to go to the front. She doesn't have to go to the front. It might not make her popular with the other ladies, but if she is struggling and is unable to go through, then you know, that's the situation. She's only 16 years old. It's her first World Junior Championships, and to find herself right up there, you know, that's very commendable.
Another 2 seconds added to the advantage as well, as Eve Whittaker and Maria Lopez Ferrado leading them through. 39 seconds adrift now. Could potentially put another 10 seconds onto that by the end of this final lap of 4 on the bike. If a move is going to be made from this chase pack, somebody's got to really push the initiative soon, because there's not very long left on this bike course to be able to get yourself out of the trouble that those in the middle of the field, so to speak, from around about 5th to 22nd now, are staring at.
And these ladies are now onto their last lap. So they'll be starting to think about that run just a little bit. Obviously don't want to deter the focus from, you know, the technical aspects.
We have a point on the bike circuit that you will have mapped out for yourself to say, right now, this is the section where I'm going to start maybe focusing a little on the run and what's to come more than anything else. This is where I want to start hydrating extra or taking in some gel packs in preparation to kick on in that run. Will you have picked out a marker, so to speak, on the laps of when you want to start engaging the brain in that manner?
Yeah, it will probably be, you know, a part of the course that's a little bit less technical with if you're taking on nutrition, so you're not having to, you know, navigate all those turns while you're trying to take on your nutrition. And then just insofar as, you know, taking feet out of shoes, that type of thing, yeah, you would have recce'd the course and decided, you know, positioning wise where you needed to be. Also depends if your bike's racked on a left or right side of the transition area, so that'll be important. You know, not such a factor for our lead 4 athletes because they're not, you know, having to contend with a huge pack, but this chase pack certainly, yeah, it would be important to know which side of the transition their bike is so they can position themselves on that side of the road.
I wonder if Salai will just be thinking slightly about the time lost as well in T1. If she either will be more determined, as again in that tight left-hand turn is where she loses a bit of time over the leading 3 there. She's quick to get it back, but every single time it's just an extra bit of exertion to get herself back on the rear wheels of the French pair and the Austrian.
Yeah, and it looked like Hazel's really trying to put the pressure on there as well. She like whipped around the 2 French athletes, tried to, you know, make that gap a little bit bigger to Salai, trying to put the pressure on her, trying to zap the energy out of her legs as much as possible come the run. She knows that Salai is a fantastic runner, probably knows that the 2 French ladies are fantastic runners.
Yeah, maybe just a strategy from the Austrian then. It's been taking place over the last 4 laps or so, around about 2/3 of this final bike lap remaining for these leading 4 athletes, and they have put everybody else far behind them as almost a distant memory out there on the course right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating come the run to see, you know, how much has this bike actually taken out of Fanny Salai. Seeing her stuck on the back of this bike pack. We don't know if that's a tactical decision. Has Tim Don told her, Fanny, stay on the back of the pack, conserve your energy, or, you know, is she struggling and she's just, you know, hanging into this group?
I thought there was a terrible pun about fanny pack there for a second to be made there, Gillian. I'm glad you swerved that one. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the run plays out, because we saw a number of different ways that it could go. We saw yesterday with Susanna Mikhailikova and a kind of a trio of Maria Tomei as well, battling it out along with the eventual Hungarian winner yesterday in the women's under-23 World Championships, kind of tussling it out, and they were all running with each other and keeping pace with each other to try and push that tempo on the run as much as possible. Eventually, though, the last bit of energy belonging to Horvath on the final straight. But we also saw yesterday the Spaniard David Cantero del Campo just going out all guns blazing from the word go and saying, I'm going to set my own pace and you guys are going to try and have to keep with me. And someone like Salai has the ability to set that sort of pace, but there are at least a couple of ladies in this group that have the ability to stick with her if she decides to go rearing off. Be interesting to see if either of these four athletes try and make a burst straight away out there on the run, or if they're happy to stick with each other and just try and stick out momentum and hope and rely on a strong sprint finish or a strong final lap of the 2 laps of the 2.5-kilometer run circuit to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see once they hit the run. And also, I think, you know, if the wind is pumping, that's also going to be a factor. Do you tuck in behind someone for the first bit of the run, conserve a little bit of energy and, you know, go a little bit later on? Or do you do what David Cantero del Campo did, back your run, go out aggressively, go out hard, and just hang in there and hope that no one's able to catch you?
45 seconds the gap now between the chasing pack and these front four. Needless to say, I think we could forget about where the podium positions are going to come from, aside from these leading ladies right now.
Yeah, unfortunately for the chasers, that is quite a large gap. So 44 seconds, and that group led through by Eve Whittaker of Great Britain, who was so close to making this front group. Really, really close. Just missed latching on to these four ladies. Yeah, that's a large group, the chase group.
Look, it's going to be a great finish for the top 10 spots, that's for sure, which will all still count in terms of building up their pedigree on the junior circuit. A number of these ladies, of course, don't just compete on the junior circuit, consistently in the Euro Cup, African Cup, Oceania Cup events at the elite level as well.
Yeah, it's a massive event for these junior athletes. You know, they don't get the opportunity to race against the best in the world very often. It's once a year at these World Championships. So they'll be going for those positions as high as possible. 65 athletes, they want to finish as high as possible. Top 10, top 20 is not to be laughed at a Junior World Championships.
The last time they turn onto the ocean front then, leading for pretty much in the procession that they've been in for the last 4 laps or so. Salai just lingering off the rear. There's a couple of clips being undone down there on the shoe. Salai already getting her feet out of the pedals as they prepare to hit the blue carpet and go into transition, guided into T2. It's the 2 French ladies bringing them home. Grasset and Hoa. Tabea Huis of Austria in 3rd and Fanny Salai in 4th. 2 seconds separating the top 4. And you can see the difference in terms of where these ladies are going through transition, and it's very quick indeed from the French pair as they are straight out onto the run. Salai is going to try and follow in hot pursuit, but she again is just having a bit of a struggle through transition and comes out at the rear of the group. In fact, she's already done the Austrian though and got herself up into 3rd. Can either of those two catch up with the French pair, Grasset and Hoa, that are racing away straight away out of transition?
Yeah, Grasset and Hoa are really aggressive with their transitions. They're really, really slick in their routes. You know, they'll want tactically to try and get out ahead of Fanny Salai. She now needs to chase them down.
4 seconds the gap between the French pair and Salai, as the rest of the field comes into transition, around about 48 seconds behind the leaders or so. Who can make up the most ground as they come out. Eve Whittaker the first, along with Mitt Wittmans. Those two were certainly keen to try and put themselves up into a position to maybe make a push, and they seem like a couple of the athletes that were certainly leading the charge of that chase group, albeit a charge that was still losing ground on the leaders.
Maria Lopez, Parada of Mexico, Martina McDowell, Millie Breeze, Domingo Pocum Espinoza, Anouk Dana, some of our athletes heading out there in the top 10.
And Headley going out as well, the British athlete, another one that was trying to push the tempo earlier on. And so I think that's Hoat who is, in fact it's Gasset, excuse me, who is taking the lead right now. Here comes Salai just eating up Hoat and taking second spot. Can't afford to linger for too long if you're going to make pushes to outstrip those in front of you. It's got to happen quickly on the 2 laps of this run course. Only 5 kilometers from the start of the run, separating the top athletes from their medal positions, and Salai is certainly showing she is one of the top athletes in this field as she makes light work of the French woman in front of her and locks her eyes on the top target out in the lead of this race, with Gasset the one on the charge.
Yes, Salai flying past her out there, and she's now got Gasset in her sights, and it looks like she's eating into that lead.
Did wonder about Tabea Huis, the fact she was pushing so much on the bike. Salai obviously had to work to stay with them, but looks like she has plenty left in the tank for this run at the moment at least, and she is already starting to tear up the opposition in her path. In the meantime, the Austrian has been left way, way back by these front 3, and is merely a distant memory really, as Gasset leads them down the waterfront towards the 180-degree turn, but she will hear those footsteps coming up behind her.
Yeah, I wondered if Salai was just going to tuck in behind her or head straight past her. So it looks like for the time being, she had to put in a big effort there. So just tucking in behind Gasset at the moment. And on paper, these two athletes are probably the strongest 2 runners. We know Gasset has competed for France on the World Cross Country Circuit. We know Fanny Salai has put down some really impressive times on the track, over 3,000 meters. So yeah, our 2 strongest runners probably at the front end of the field, tussling it out for this championship.
That's where you want it to be for entertainment value right at the end of this one. It's now who's got the steel, who's got the metal in them to be able to make this tempo, make this pace last for the full 5K. And it might be one where we now have to be patient to see how the front 2 react to each other. It's not going to feel pretty just slowing down so much to take that tight turn and then kickstart into life again. Salai, as you mentioned, Gillian, is just tucking in behind and happy to settle in off the shoulder of the French woman. Looks like she's still having to battle quite a bit just to stay up with Gasset every so often. The gap just extends slightly, but then Salai is, as we saw on the bike time and time again over those 4 laps, quick to just rebuild back up.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit of a head crosswind for these athletes as they head back towards transition. So a little bit more challenging as they make their way back towards transition. So Salai, perhaps tactical decision, just tuck in there at the moment. She had to put in a big effort after her transition to get up to Gasset. So, you know, just biding her time, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she tries to go around Gasset, if she's going to make a move, when she decides to do so.
All of these athletes are experienced and obviously know how to run in these events and these sorts of positions, but it does take in these sorts of moments that just presence of mind of a maybe more experienced athlete to recognize that you've had that push to get up on the shoulder of the leader and not to go too early and try and do it all in one go, and instead just to settle in and see what opportunities open up.
Yeah, and you can see Salai is not running next to her. She's not running like on her shoulder. She's running directly behind her. So she's using her as a shield. She's using her to protect from the wind.
Which will, I'm sure, not make Gasset too happy about that, but there's not much she can do. And you'd rather take track position over anything else right now, wouldn't you? Better to be first and then in second, whatever position in the race. Gasset knows well and truly that she has a hungry Hungarian going step for step right behind her, almost like her shadow.
Yeah, tucked right in behind her there.
Not going to need to worry about splits between these two. There's nothing to split them.
Yeah, matching each other stride for stride at the moment.
This is just a game of cat and mouse. Seeing who wants to try and escape away or who wants to go in for the kill as quickly as possible. And at the right time as well. All about timing your moments. I suppose it's not really something you can plot and plan for necessarily out there. It's all about making the decision in the moment. Nothing can be pre-prepared for these sorts of events right now up at the front.
No, you know, coaches might have given tips, for example, if there are challenging conditions, you know, like the wind, and advising the athletes, you know, conserve your energy, just tuck in behind until you're feeling stronger and you know, you feel like it's an opportune moment to go past. So we know Tim Don has a wealth of experience, and he would be advising Fanny. I'm not so sure if he's on the sidelines there today, but I'm sure she'll be getting some type of advice or instructions, or will have been getting some advice prior to the event. But she's tucked in right behind Grosset there. Grosset probably, you know, no stranger to front running. We know she's one of the strongest young French cross-country runners. So might enjoy actually front running. Some athletes enjoy front running. Some athletes prefer to be tucked in behind. See, she's coming up on her shoulder for the first time now. I think as they're going to go through that technical section of the course, they'll make almost a 180-degree turn, and they will run back through the transition part of the course and head out onto the second lap. Howard there, France, sitting tight in third place at the moment, with quite a comfortable gap back to Tabea Hayes, I think, who is around about 40 seconds behind Leah Howard.
Yeah, and falling potentially back into the clutches of some of the others in that group. But Hart is in a tidy position in terms of finding a place on the podium. She may have the best view in the house in terms of the battle that is about to take place up at the front. There may be a chance still for her to put herself in the equation come the end of this. She's not completely done and dusted. And if one or perhaps both of our leading athletes start to struggle, start to linger in this second lap of the run, well, don't count out Leah Howard just yet. 8 seconds adrift. Only 1 second's been added to the previous run split for the woman in third. So she is at least matching the pace of the others. Just ahead of her, although seems to have dropped off another few seconds just in that little short strip of blue carpet.
Yeah, Grasset out onto the second lap in first place. Fanny Slice stuck to her like glue at the moment. Nothing between these two women. We know they're both phenomenal runners, so I think we're in for a really tasty second lap of this run.
Who fancies themselves to push hardest for longest? That's pretty much what this is going to come down to. Whoever thinks they have enough reserves in the tank to be able to hit the go button from as far out as possible. As you see, Maria Lopez Ferrado, the Mexican athlete, who's been able to catch up with Tabea Hayes, who's now down in 7th spot. Anouk Dana and Martina McDowell, the Swiss and Italian athletes, have been able to bypass the Austrian, who pushed that pace up at the front.
Ferrado running really strongly there, but she'll need to make up around about 45 seconds if she's to try and contend for the podium, which will be a very tough ask over 2.5 kilometers. It's McDowell there of Italy going through. Martina McDowell trains out of Loughborough in the UK.
Yeah, the wonderful facilities that they have at Loughborough University, superb for many athletes across many different sports. Even the American football giant, the NFL, has set up an academy up there. It still pales into comparison, though, of some of the facilities that you get at the colleges out there in the United States.
And of course, Cassandra Bograd, our reigning Olympic champion, basing herself in Loughborough as well. So McDowell doing a bit of training with her idols there. I think she mentioned in her social media, fantastic to be able to train alongside some of her idols there in Loughborough. And Loughborough has served Cassandra Bograd well, for sure, training under Gavin Smith.
Yeah, she'll be in action later on this weekend as the elites will take the centre stage for the grand finale of the World Championships weekend. Just wait for the grand finale between these two, though. Grasset or Salai, 1 and 2, still inseparable out there at the front.
Yeah, so they're heading out towards that dead turn where they will then have around about 1.25 kilometers left on this run. We know there's a slight headwind as they head back towards transition. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see this last part of the run.
Just wonder if Salai will stick in until the very last moment, particularly with that headwind. Let her opponent do all the hard work of dragging her along the final 2.5 kilometers or so.
Although it looks like she's just coming alongside. This is her first.
Oh, she's going. Look at that for a kick, and she's asking the French woman to go with her. Salai suddenly looking like she's sprinting for the blue carpet when actually she's just sprinting down towards this 180-degree turn. And then the pair of them take their foot off the gas as Salai is just seeing what Grasset has there and feeling things out. That's an interesting moment, certainly one to remember, and certainly one that Grasset will suddenly say, oh, well, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that was a distinctive surge. A lot of effort going into that. Salai just testing Grasset there, asking the question, what have you got left in the tank? Can you come with me?
And there was a response, certainly enough of a response from Grasset to say, well, if you go, I am going to join you. And it's interesting to see that the French woman has once herself put in the shoulder across and getting herself back up into first.
Yeah, and that might be psychological as well. You can see Salai now making a move again.
Yeah, she's looking to get right alongside as these two are starting to just up the tempo on each other. Salai now out in front.
Yeah, taking the lead now for the first time. And will Grasset just tuck in behind her, or will Grasset, you can see again another surge.
Salai just trying to get Grasset out from behind her as well, weaving across the track slowly so that they both have that headwind into each other. Grasset, though, quickly to try and tuck in behind Salai, and again she weaves across, and Grasset is really trying to struggle to get back in front, and now Salai's dropped off and she has to react to the French woman. This is going to be an engrossing 2.5 kilometer finish if this is the way it's going to play out between them both. And Grasset may have just slowed down slightly there as Salai's allowed to get her shoulder back in front once more. They're almost playing with each other, trying to toy with each other about when each of them is going to push, going to make that final surge forward.
Yeah, reminds me of the 2016 Olympic Games between Gwen Jorgensen and Nicholas Spurg. You know, very similar situation there.
Shoulder to shoulder. Salai just about in front once again. Not weaving, not pushing like she was.
Yeah, Salai now doesn't want to take the lead. She wants Grasset to go in front of her. Grasset is like, no, you are staying in front, Salai. You have surged. I'm now going to tuck in behind you.
Oh, Salai sat on the rear of the bike, sat on the rear of the run of her opponent for a large part of it. Doesn't want to be out in front, it seems. There was almost a shrug of the shoulders from each athlete as if to say, come on, no, you come on. Just a few moments ago.
Yeah, absolute cat and mouse games going on here.
Who's the first to blink, to push, and who's perhaps going to get caught out, either going too early or reacting too late? Salai trying to shake things off, perhaps in preparation to get nice and loose for the final burst.
Yeah, and whoever wants to make that move is going to want to have the inside line. So they're going to want to be on the left-hand side of the road, or as we're looking at the screen, the right-hand side. So Salai at the moment in that position.
Can she replicate what Carolina Helga Horvath did yesterday, the Hungarian, and find that huge surge right at the end?
What a weekend would that be for Hungary?
The battle for first is as close as it could be between these two.
with the cat and mouse games, Heart has now actually run up to these ladies. I think she's only sitting about 5 seconds back. You can just see she's just behind the motorbike.
It's basically a bike's distance, isn't there, between third place and these front two, because they've been so focused on each other rather than perhaps what's bringing up the rear as well. So there may be a last sting in the tail coming from the French woman in third. She might be able to put herself right in a position to attack too, as Salah is starting to make a burst, and once more Grasset is looking to go with her as these two are looking for a big finish right at the end. You can just see that bridge in the background, which is where the para-triathletes were making their way into transition. It means there's still a few meters or so before they get alongside the blue carpet and have around about a few meters to go before that left-hand turn. Salah now pushing once again. Grasset looking to follow once more. Huat looks like she's being dropped off by the leaders. Salah and Grasset, though, neck and neck once again. Salah has track position in terms of having that inside line as she looks to fight back, as Grasset's making the push now as they come up to this final turn, and Grasset's making a hunt for home. Salah is slowing down to try and take the inside line. It's going to be a sprint finish between these two. That's not the finishing line. That's in a few meters after that crossing. These two are going to put on a grandstand finish right to the death here at these World Championships. Who is going to be junior world champion? Is it going to be the French woman or Salah? Salah maybe just running out of gas right at the end. Amber Grasset is going to take top spot. My goodness, she had to work hard for that. Salah settles for second, and it's going to be Leah Huat, who just couldn't stick with the front two, who's going to take third place. 2 on the podium for France, and a superb finish from the front two. An amicable shake of the hands. They were perhaps battling a few moments ago as Fanny Salah shakes her head in frustration. It was there to be had, but she just didn't have the gas to outdo Amber Grasset right at the death in that one. And it is France who once again pick up another medal in a superb 2024 for French triathlon.
Wow, what a finish.
Oh, there's a huge look of frustration on Fanny Salah's face, but there is elation reeking out of Amber Grasset.
Maria Lopez Ferreira of Mexico comes through to take a really respectable 4th place.
Well, we were expecting fireworks in this race for sure. Of course, we had a circle around Fanny Salah after we spoke to her this week. But we always knew that the French team's quality could come to the forefront, and it absolutely has this afternoon in Torremolinos. And it's a superb feather in the cap for Grasset, and an excellent 3rd place finish as well for Leah Huat, one of the lowest in terms of the ranking order coming in today, wearing the number 67. She has fought so hard to put herself up into the bronze medal position as Anagdana, the Swiss athlete, comes in 5th. Jimena Renata de la Peña Schott of the United States ends up finishing in 6th place. Martina McDowell, the Italian, in 7th. Lisa Lecomte in 8th. Another top 10 finish for the French. 3 out of the top 8 are from the French team, with Mariella Buccetti and Carlotta Bulk, making out the top 10 for Germany in 9th and 10th. Superb.
Yeah, that was fantastic racing. You know, that really reminded me of the 2016 Olympic Games. Pretty much exactly the same thing happened between Nicholas Berg, Gwen Jorgensen, cat and mouse, asking questions, you know, fantastic racing, such an exciting finish, and yeah, wonderful spectacle for triathlon.
Just didn't quite have it at the end, did she, Salah? She just didn't have enough left in the tank. Maybe it's because those little extra surges she'd had to make coming out of the transitions and then staying on the back of the bike as well. Whatever it was, it just wasn't quite there for her in the end today. But Grasset, she made her mark out on the run early. She put herself in a position. She maintained that front spot for a large part of the run. And she didn't really get brought into the games with Salah too often. Let's have a chat with the winner right now down on the blue carpet.
Bravo, aujourd'hui c'était vraiment une belle course. Comment ça c'était?
Oui, je suis super contente de ma course. Je suis bien sortie en nage, j'ai vu Léa presque première dans le parc à vélo. Après, on a super bien roulé, c'est bien entendu. on a mis de l'écart et puis à pied, c'était un beau duel. Je suis vraiment contente. Vraiment, c'était génial.
We're going to translate a little bit. She's saying that at the beginning of the swim, she just saw that she was up front and she was able to follow a little bit. The bike, they all worked together really well, and then it was all a matter of keeping up and saving some legs at the end for the run. C'était comment les derniers kilomètres avec Fanny? Qu'est-ce qui passait pour ta tête?
C'était super intense parce que on se regardait, il y avait le vent de face, c'était vraiment un beau duel, je suis vraiment contente. En fait, ce qui était dur, c'était qu'il y avait un virage juste avant le sprint d'arrivée, donc en fait, il y avait vraiment 2 sprints à faire. Mais c'était vraiment génial.
Well, she's saying that we were asking how was that last kilometer going shoulder to shoulder with Fanny Salai. She was saying that it was really, really hard, especially because there was a sharp turn before the sprint finish, or to sprint for the finish line. Therefore, they had to do 2 pushes and 2 sprints, and she was just trying to keep up and keep the legs until the last minutes. Tu as essayé de faire, de pousser un peu plus plusieurs fois. Tu as essayé dans la course à pied, tu as essayé quelquefois de laisser derrière Fanny ou...
Ouais, mais en fait, on essayait de jauger parce que on a fait quand même un gros vélo, donc c'était compliqué de savoir le niveau de l'autre. Moi, je connais Fanny, je connais très bien son niveau, c'est le top des juniors, donc c'est compliqué de savoir à pied si on en garde ou pas, donc voilà.
Bravo aujourd'hui. Elle a dit, she's saying that she was trying and testing, seeing where she could do the final push, but they were both pushing every once in a while, and that last kilometer was just really, really hard to keep up with an athlete of such a level as Fanny Salai. Merci beaucoup. Fanny, I guess that disappointed, but a fantastic race today still, no?
Thank you. I'm a little bit disappointed, but congrats for the French girls. They did amazing. So no words. She was the best today. So yeah.
I guess that it was that last kilometer. Both of you were shoulder to shoulder, trying to break away at some points and doing some tries to break. Were you trying or just saving it for the last turn?
I'm trying to save my energy for the last sprint. We were doing a sprint 1 year ago in the European Champs, so we know each other very well, and I know she will be very good today. So I'm kind of know she's going to be in the top. So, but yeah, the last 1K was very hard, but I was trying my best, and this was.
Still a second place at the World Championships when you're still 16 years old. How does that sound?
Yeah, I know I have 3 more years to do my dream. So yeah, I will be. Yeah.
Well, congratulations today. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Third place today for you. How does that feel?
I'm really satisfied about my race. I did in global my best race, so I'm happy. I tried to take a good start. So after that I swim the fast that I can, and I get out second of the swim, so I'm really happy. And after that we take to make the breakaway with the other girl, and it was a good job with the other. Tabea did a good bike, so it was a good bike. And after that the girl start really fast, so I tried to catch her all the run, but they ran really fast, so I'm really happy about my race.
Still, congratulations, well done in third place. It's a really good result today.
Thanks.
Bravo.
Well, it's the same top 3 from the 2023 European Youth Championship finals last year. It's just a slightly different order. That time, Fanny Salai able to outdo Ambre Grasset by around about 9 seconds or so, with Lea Hua finishing third that time as well, 16 seconds behind Salai. On this occasion, however, it was the French woman, Grasset, who had more than enough left in the tank to be able to get the job done. And just about pipped the Hungarian to the post by 2 seconds. It all built up with the beach start, of course, on the 750-metre swim. The anxious wait turning into slightly more anarchy down there in the water as the ladies went looking for position. It's no surprise to see that there was a silver swim cap that was out in front on the swim eventually. And it would be the Hungarian Fanny Salai who would start to lead them through the swim. Quick to get up to the turn, and it was around the buoys that she began to really start to etch out a gap that would end up being around about 12 seconds or so out of the water. You see the distance she'd already been able to create at the end of that swim. However, things didn't go too well in transition, and she lost those 12 seconds fairly quickly. I'm not saying that that would have been a complete game changer in terms of where she would have finished, but Fanny Salai will certainly look back at that transition in T1 and wonder perhaps what could have been potentially. Lea Houart was right with her at coming out of transition, but it was the work from Ambre Grasset, who was 12th coming out of T1, but by the first bike split, the French woman had got herself right up with the leaders. Tabea Huys, the Austrian, joining them as well. Lea Houart and Fanny Salai as a group of 4 that would work their way around the 4 laps of the bike course. Whittaker, the British athlete, unable to stick with this quartet for long enough to be able to make an impression, and she would fall back into the clutches of a chasing pack. And it was a chasing pack as well that continued to drop further and further back as Huys, the Austrian, really encouraged the others 3 at the front to put the tempo down. She was the one that was orchestrating the pushes, and the 2 French women looked very comfortable indeed, tucked in behind her. Salai struggling a little bit through some of the more technical sections of the race, but she would still be able to hold on to the rear of the leaders, unlike Whittaker, as I say, who dropped away. Would end up finishing the bike around about almost a minute off the leading group. Salai would have rare moments out at the front of the front 4. More often than not, we'd see her draped off the back of the rear wheel of the front 3. And this would continue to be how it would weave around the streets of Torremolinos. It's a strong trio that know each other so well from those European Youth Championships 12 months ago, last July. Only seemed inevitable, really, that Tabea Huys would end up being a bit of a bystander when it came to the race for the podium positions. With each lap that passed, the leading group etched out a grander and grander advantage. And it certainly put pay to anybody else getting themselves involved in the hunt for a medal position today. The question would be who would be able to take the advantage out of this front 4 over the rest of the pack. Would it be Grasset? Would it be Salai? Would it be Houart? Would Huys have pushed it too much too early on the bike, or would she have left herself enough? The preparations began for T2. These ladies would be as quick as they can through transition. You see the French pair right at the back of the transition, but very quick through T2 and out onto the run. And that's when the games would really start between Salai and Grasset. Not as smooth perhaps as the Austrian would have liked, but it wouldn't really matter anyway. Salai with a little bit of ground to make up on the front pair. She'd make it up very quickly though. Oh, eaten up inside the first few hundred meters of the run. Dropping straight onto the shoulder of a leading lady before they got to the midway point of that first lap. And we had to be patient. Much like Salai, the waiting game began. Grasset just had to be aware of exactly where the Hungarian was and what her motives were for a large part of this run. There was a moment as well when these two were almost toying with each other too much that this lady perhaps thought she was going to be able to get herself back into the equation for a silver or a gold medal place. It was just towards the midpoint of this last lap of the run that Salai started to make a few surges for herself just to test the legs of Amber Grasset. But coming back down towards the blue carpet, it was all about Allez les Bleus. And Grasset making the push right at the end off the final corner. And there just wasn't quite the response from the Hungarian. The Frenchwoman taking gold. Salai settles for silver. And bronze as well for Leah Huart. Brief embrace from first and second, but the frustration evident on the Hungarian's face. But it's the two compatriots with a warm embrace, knowing they're making up 2 of the 3 spots on the podium. And that's where we will head to next. The medal ceremony soon to get underway. Well, there's no action. We can bring you a repeat of the action from the race. Gillian, I'll ask you now. I mean, it's too early to start talking about, you know, a budding rivalry between these two, but they've gone neck and neck at the youth championships, neck and neck now at the junior championships. It does look like it could be an entertaining affair between Salai and Grasset over the next few years through the junior ranks.
Yeah, I think Grasset still has another year or 2 as a junior. Fanny Salai, we know, has another 3 shots at the title. So yeah, it'll be great to see how these athletes develop over the next few years, but I'm sure they're going to enjoy the special moments on the podium here today.
It's not going to be the potentially last time that we hear the French national anthem being played out here on the beach side of Torremolinos. It's not the first time we've heard it today either. Being flooded with French medalists throughout the Para-World Champs earlier today.
In 3rd place and the winner of the bronze medal at the 2024 World Triathlon Championships Torremolinos, Andalucía, representing France.
En tercer lugar y ganadora de la medalla de bronce representando a Francia,
Leah Huart.
Bronze again. Not a bad feeling, I'm sure. As I say, she had a good view for watching that final stretch play out between the pair in front of her. A very good way to cap off the season.
In the 2nd place and the winner of the silver medal at the 2024 World Triathlon Championships Torremolinos, Andalucía, representing Hungary.
en segundo lugar y ganadora de la medalla de plata representando a Hungría,
Fanny Salai.
Salai then taking the 2nd step on the podium. It's not a step she's too used to taking as well. get the feeling that there are gold medals almost in her DNA. But not today. Not at these Junior World Championships.
And in the first place, and the 2024 Junior World Champion representing France.
Primera clasificada y campeona del mundo junior, representando a Francia.
Ambre Grasset.
And it is the French woman who stands above the rest. That's a smile that will probably last all the way into the start of next season as well, I imagine. Always good to sign out with a big, big victory. There aren't many bigger than a Junior World Championship title for these women. Now the national anthem of France.
El himno nacional de Francia.
Without a doubt, one of the best national anthems that you can hear on any podium. It's one that we've almost been having as our soundtrack of the summer, not just in the triathlon world, but across the athletics world. Confirmation of our podium there. 3 women that are growing rather accustomed to battling it out. So we will leave it there with the celebrations for the Junior World Champions. There is more to come in just a few minutes' time. Stick around when we will have the Men's Junior World Championship battle here on the seashores of Torremolinos, and we'll be back in time for that in about 30 minutes.
El campeonato del mundo junior en categoría masculina.